Hey America! Bill Chick here. Ever wonder how you pick a president? It's a bit more complex than just counting up all the votes across the country. It's not just a popularity contest, folks. If it were, the candidate with the most votes would always win. But that's not always the case. We use this thing called the Electoral College. Sounds fancy, right? But what exactly is it, and why do we use it? Well, it's kind of like choosing your favorite ice cream flavor, but your neighbors get to vote too. And some neighbors have more votes than others. Confused yet? Don't worry, it's a bit tricky at first. Don't worry, we'll break it all down. The Electoral College is a unique system that has been part of American democracy since the Constitution was written. The Electoral College is a group of people chosen by each state to officially elect the president and vice president. These people are known as electors. Think of them as delegates who cast votes on your behalf. They are supposed to represent the will of the people in their state. Each state gets a certain number of these electors based on its population. More people, more electors. For example, California, being the most populous state, has 55 electors, while a smaller state like Wyoming has just 3. Simple, right? Well, there's a bit more to it. The first Tuesday after the first Monday in November, you head to the polls and vote for your favorite presidential candidate. This is known as Election Day. But here's the kicker. You're not actually voting directly for the president. Mind blown. Instead, you're voting for a slate of electors chosen by your party. You're actually voting for a group of electors who promise to vote for your chosen candidate. These electors then meet in December to cast their votes, which are counted in a joint session of Congress in January. So, while your vote is incredibly important, it's part of a larger, more complex system designed to balance the influence of both populous and less populous states. So why this whole electoral college thing anyway? It's a question that has puzzled many people over the years. Why not just let the popular vote decide who becomes president? Blame it on the founding fathers. These were the brilliant minds who laid the foundation of the United States, and they had some pretty big ideas about how to run a country. They were a bunch of smart dudes who created this system back in the 1780s. They were visionaries thinking ahead to problems that might arise in the future. They had their reasons, even if they seem a little strange today. The world was a very different place back then, and they had to consider the limitations and challenges of their time. Back then, communication wasn't as easy as sending a tweet or posting a TikTok. There were no smartphones, no internet, and no 24-hour news cycle. News traveled slow, and most people only knew about local stuff. It could take weeks or even months for information to spread across the country. The founding fathers were worried that a charismatic but unqualified candidate could sway the public in a direct election. They feared that without a buffer, the masses might be easily misled. They also wanted to make sure that smaller states had a say in choosing the president. They didn't want the voices of people in less populated areas to be drowned out by those in larger states. They didn't want a few big states calling all the shots. They believed in a balance where every state, regardless of size, had a role in the decision-making process. Imagine if your favorite ice cream flavor was always getting outvoted by the most popular one. Not cool, right? The founding fathers wanted to avoid a scenario where only the majority's preferences were considered. So, they came up with the Electoral College as a compromise. It was a way to ensure that both the population and the states had a voice in the election. It was a way to balance the power of the people with the influence of the states. They wanted to create a system that was fair and representative of the entire nation. They thought it was the best way to elect a president who would represent the whole country. A leader who would be chosen not just by the majority, but with consideration for the diverse voices across all states. Okay, let's talk numbers. The Electoral College is a unique system used in the United States to elect the president and vice president. It's not a direct popular vote, but rather a process involving electors. There are 538 electors in total, representing all 50 states and the District of Columbia. These electors are the key players in determining the outcome of the presidential election. To win the presidency, a candidate needs to snag at least 270 of them. That's the magic number. This majority ensures that the winning candidate has broad support across the country. Think of it like winning a really important game of Electoral College bingo. Each state has its own set of rules and strategies, making the game both exciting and complex. Each state gets a number of electors equal to the number of senators and representatives it has in Congress. This means that every state has a minimum of 3 electors, regardless of its population size. Every state gets 2 senators, and the number of representatives depends on the state's population. States with larger populations have more representatives, and thus more electors. So, bigger states like California and Texas get more electors, while smaller states like Wyoming and Vermont get fewer. This distribution aims to balance the influence of both large and small states in the election. Here's the catch. In most states, it's a winner-take-all system. This means that the candidate who receives the most votes in a state wins all of that state's electors, amplifying their victory. That means whoever gets the most votes in a state usually gets all of that state's electors. This can lead to situations where a candidate wins the popular vote but loses the electoral vote. It's like winning all the cookies in a cookie jar just because you ate one more than your friend. The Electoral College system is a fascinating blend of strategy, numbers, and political maneuvering. On election night, everyone's glued to their TVs, watching the results roll in. But remember, it's not over until the Electoral College sings. The popular vote matters, but it's the electoral vote that determines the winner. Sometimes a candidate can win the popular vote but lose the election because they didn't win enough states to get to 270 electoral votes. It's like coming in second place in a pie-eating contest because you ate more pie overall, but someone else ate more pies in their specific category. This has happened a few times in US history, most recently, in 2016. It's one of the reasons why some people think the Electoral College is outdated and needs to be reformed. Section 5. When nobody gets enough votes, the House of Representatives steps in. Hold on to your hats, folks, because things get even wilder if no candidate gets a majority of the electoral votes. It's like a tiebreaker in a game of kickball, except instead of kicking a ball, we let the House of Representatives decide the next president. If no one gets to 270, the House of Representatives chooses the president from the top 3 candidates. Each state gets 1 vote, and the candidate who wins a majority of states wins the presidency. Talk about pressure. This situation is pretty rare, but it has happened before, way back in 1824. It just goes to show that the Electoral College can lead to some unexpected outcomes. Section 6. Hold up. That seems unfair. Criticisms of the Electoral College. Now, some people think the Electoral College is about as popular as a skunk at a picnic. They have some pretty strong arguments against it. First, they argue that it gives too much power to a few swing states. These are states that are closely divided between Democrats and Republicans. Candidates often spend most of their time and money campaigning in these states, while ignoring the rest of the country. Second, critics say the Electoral College can lead to a candidate winning the presidency, even if they lose the popular vote. They argue that this undermines the principle of one person, one vote. It's like winning a game because you scored more points in a specific quarter, even though the other team had more points overall. Section 7. Hey, now it's not all bad arguments in favor of the system. But wait, there's another side to this story. Some folks think the Electoral College is like a vintage car. It might be old, but it still gets the job done. Supporters argue that the Electoral College helps to ensure that all parts of the country are represented in presidential elections. They say it forces candidates to pay attention to the needs of voters in both rural and urban areas. They also argue that the Electoral College promotes stability by making it difficult for a third-party candidate to win the presidency. They say this helps to prevent extreme views from taking hold in government. Section 8. The Electoral College today. Still kicking, still controversial. So, there you have it, the Electoral College in all its glory and controversy. It's a system that has been debated for centuries, and it's likely to remain a hot topic for years to come. Some states have even passed laws that would change how their electors are chosen, usually in an effort to make the system more reflective of the popular vote. But whether these changes will actually happen remains to be seen. Section 9. So, what does it all mean? Wrapping our heads around the Electoral College. The Electoral College is a complex and often confusing system, but it's an important part of how America elects its presidents. Whether you love it or hate it, understanding how it works is crucial for being an informed citizen. So the next time you watch an election night broadcast, remember that it's not just about who gets the most votes overall, it's about winning states, collecting those all-important electoral votes, and maybe even getting a little help from the House of Representatives. It's a wild ride, folks, but that's American democracy for you.